Okay, I ran out of room. I had to delete some stuff. I never got to finish my thought, but I'm going somewhere with this, so bear with me. Through COVID, we got, you can't go visit Grandma in a nursing home. She's dying. You can't go and see her and be with her and say your goodbyes and so on because COVID. Um, then, too, your job is an essential. You can't work. Your business is an essential. You can't open your store. Um, you're a landlord, you can't collect the rent because the people aren't working, they're not operating their businesses, they're not working, you can't collect the rent. And so on. You know, all this stuff. We're still dealing with the aftermath of that. And now they're trying to bring it full circle again to the Russians. And they're doing this because they had a good thing with the Russians. From 1946 to 1989, 1990, in that era, the government had it going on with them Russians. They made a great villain. They made a great enemy. So now they're trying to establish the Russians as our enemies again. It's those damn Russians that are responsible for everything. Those commie pinko preverts or whatever. We got to worry about them. Um, Now here's the thing. I sometimes laugh and make fun of it because I remember that era. And so for me, it's actually within living memory. And all that stuff with the Russians, with the threat of nuclear holocaust, and the Russians were evil. All Russian men were homosexuals, and all Russian women were ugly. I guess that's maybe why the Russian men were homosexuals. I don't know. And they were all evil. Boris and Natasha were out to get poor Rocky and Bullwinkle. Remember that? Must get moose and squirrel. you know, Never was clear as to why these two Russian agents would want a moose and a squirrel, but anyway, who knows? But the bottom line is this. I guess that's just how evil they were. Even an innocent moose and an innocent flying squirrel were targets of these evil Russians. Anyway, the bottom line is now they're turning it full circle. They're trying to make out that the Russians are our enemies again. They're trying to make out that Vladimir Putin is out to get us and all the rest of it. Vladimir Putin couldn't give a flying you-know-what about us. Vladimir Putin has so many problems over in Russia there where he is. He's got enough on his plate to deal with what's going on in his own country. He doesn't care about us. He's not our enemy. He couldn't be bothered to be our enemy. But we're going to make him our enemy because we're picking a fight with him. We're constantly poking at him and picking at him. We're poking at the Russian bear, trying to wake it up so that it can be our enemy again, so it can be a threat again, and then we can all be scared of it, and so the government can tell us what to do. And the government can say, oh, we got to take your civil rights away because those damn Russians have reared their ugly heads again. You poke at a sleeping thing enough, it's going to rear its head up. Leave the damn Russians alone. They're not bothering us right now. Leave them be. They're not our enemies, not right now. But they're fast becoming our enemies again because we seem to want it that way, or at least our governments do. Let's get into a war with Russia. Yeah, that's a good idea. Though, Russia is not as harmless as it seems. They're not out to get us at this point. They just want us to leave them alone, really. That's all it is. They don't want to go back to those Cold War days. It's our governments that want that. But we keep poking at them like we're doing. They do have weapons, and they have some pretty impressive weapons, too. They have a missile. I forget what it's called now, if it's like a Hell missile or a Satan missile or a Lucifer missile, something like that. It's some sort of a hell or devil type name it has to it. I can't recall what it's called now exactly. And that friggin' thing, they can fire that off and it can be here blowing us up in a few minutes. Before we even have a chance to respond. And we want to pick a fight with these guys. Well, that would be like me, my 180-pound, 56-year-old self and poor health and everything else, walking into a biker bar and announcing, hey guys, I challenge the biggest, toughest bruiser in this room to a fight. Meet me in the back alley in 5 minutes and I'll clean your effing clock. That's what it's like doing. And then going out to the back alley and waiting for somebody to come back there and kick my rear end. That's what it's like doing. I mean, why are we challenging these people wanting to get into a war? Well, in a war, you can take civil rights away, human rights. You can the very rich, the upper crust of society, make a ton of money in a war because they own all the companies that supply all the weapons and other things that are needed to fight a war. And in fact, they'll play both sides. They'll supply both sides of the war. You'll be shooting bullets made by a company in your country at the enemy, and he'll be shooting the same bullets back at you. All made in the same factory. That's how crazy things are. And the people at the top are laughing. They don't go to war. If you're the son of a billionaire, you don't go to war. Or if you do go to war, you get a commissioned officer type job where you're sitting in an office, hundreds of miles from the front lines. You never see active combat. And that's the thing anyway. Who goes to war? It's the poor people. It's the people who have nothing. They go to war, and they get to be traumatized and maimed and killed. So no, I mean, another world war isn't going to benefit anybody other than the people at the top, and they want it badly, and they're pushing for it. And they're poking at the Russian bear right now. All this business in the Ukraine, that's a whole one-sided story that's being told there. The mainstream media doesn't cover the full thing. When communism collapsed officially, NATO promised not to screw with Russia. That was one thing that NATO promised. We'll stay away from Russia. We promise we will. Now they're right into the Ukraine, which is right on the Russian border. Putin has reason to be upset. And I'm not saying Putin's a good guy. I don't think he is. Putin's an asshole. But the bottom line is this. In this particular situation, Putin is not wrong. Even the worst of us is right sometimes. And in this situation, Putin is in the right. It's Zelensky who's the bad guy in this situation, but he gets all the good press, you see. And again, it's because they want to get a war going with Russia. They want to make Russia our enemy again. They're saying we had a pretty sweet deal. All through the 40s and 50s and 60s, 70s, into the 80s, we had a really good deal. And with this Russian thing, we want to get that going again because that worked out pretty well for us. And that's what they're doing. So don't fall for it. Don't get all caught up in emotions and things and seeing pictures. A lot of the stuff is staged. It's been proven that a lot of the stuff from Ukraine is staged, that it didn't actually happen, or it didn't happen the way that it's depicted. And, basically, don't get all emotional about it and lose your mind and say, oh, we got to go now and go to war, because that's what these people want. That's what the crooks that are running our system, that's what they want. Because that'll be a sweet deal for them. It won't be too sweet for us. We won't benefit from it. These bunkers that they're building so that they can survive a nuclear holocaust, those are so that they can survive. Not so that you can survive or so that I can survive. They're going to go in there and they're going to lock the door. And they'll leave us outside banging on the door. In fact, if you get too close to that, they'll have soldiers stationed out there to shoot you to death. And those soldiers will die, defending that bunker. When the bombs drop, they won't have any protection. They'll be killed just like you and I will be. I mean, that's how insane things really are. But anyway, the bottom line is, don't fall for it. We've had the Cold War already. It went on for 50 years, basically, or the better part of it. 40 years anyway. And we don't need that back. I mean, it won't just be a Cold War this time either. It won't be a threat of nuclear holocaust. It'll probably be nuclear holocaust, because we won't just be in a Cold War. We'll be in a hot war with Russia. And that's a whole different ball of wax. That's the thing that we all feared during the Cold War, is that it would go to a hot war. And it came very close a few times. And we were blessed not to have to contend with that back then. But believe me, it was on our minds. And it was on our minds by design. Our governments made sure it was, to keep